We're going to go look at Washington Memorials today with a guided tour from Val. Behind me, you can see the Metro train that we're going to be taking into Washington, D.C. So we're about to start our tour of the National Mall monuments. We're starting at the base of the Washington Monument, and we're going to end here. And when we get back, we'll tell you all about that big obelisk you see behind us. But first, the first stop is
Thomas Jefferson.
We're going to go see Thomas Jefferson.
We are here in Washington, D.C. checking out the monuments around the Washington Mall, and our first stop is here by the title pool to the Thomas Jefferson Memorial. This memorial was controversial, but when Franklin Delano Roosevelt came to Washington, D.C. in 1913, he noticed that there was a memorial for Lincoln and a memorial for Washington, but Thomas Jefferson was not represented, and he thought he was as influential as those other two men to our history. And so when he became president, he had the Congress start the Thomas Jefferson Memorial Commission. And in 1936, the plans were finalized, and then in 39, they started the construction. It was completed in 1943, right before FDR died. But because of all the controversy, the actual statue of Thomas Jefferson was not added until 1949. We are at the monument for George Mason, our forgotten founder. In 1776, Mason, who was 51 years old, had been appointed to a committee charged with drafting a Declaration of Rights for the state of Virginia. He had come to the then radical insight that a republic had to begin with the formal, legally binding commitment that individuals had inalienable rights that were superior to any government. Hi there, we're here at the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was our 32nd president, and his presidency spanned 12 years. The memorial is divided up into 4 separate rooms to indicate each term and its accomplishments. There, we're in room 2 of the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial, showing the second term of FDR. people living through the Depression are shown behind me in bread lines, but they're getting their inspiration from the fireside chats where FDR the first time used mass communication to the United States people, and people sat around their radios getting inspiration from FDR as he spoke to encourage the people of the United States. At this memorial, there's 4 rooms that represent his 4 terms. This is room 3 during the war. And the centerpiece is based on the line from King's famous "I Have a Dream" speech, "Out of a mountain of despair, a stone of hope." A 30-foot-high carving of Dr. King, named the Stone of Hope, stands past 2 other pieces of granite that symbolize the mountain of despair. Visitors figuratively pass through the mountain of despair on the way to the Stone of Hope, symbolizing moving through the struggle as Dr. King did during his lifetime. Hi there, we're now at the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, directly across from the Thomas Jefferson Memorial. And he is known as the icon of peaceful demonstration for civil rights in the United States. The street address for the memorial is quite interesting: 1964 Independence Avenue Southwest. The address 1964 was chosen as a direct reference to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, a milestone in the civil rights movement in which Dr. King played an important role. Continuing our tour around the Washington, D.C. monuments, we are now at the Korean War Veterans Memorial. There are 19 statues representing the different branches of riflemen on the ground protecting the 38th parallel to keep South Korea safe from communism from the North Koreans. We are now at the Lincoln Memorial in the Washington Mall. It was the first memorial on the mall. It was started at Lincoln's 105th birthday in 1914. They broke ground. 8 years later, they dedicated it Memorial Day 1922. There's 36 columns to represent the 36 states of the Union when Lincoln was president. Lincoln was carved by 6 brothers out of 38 large pieces of granite that are all put together. You almost can't see the seams at all. You have to check it out. Any person who's ever pulled a penny out of your pocket up until the last couple of years, this memorial is on the back side of it. So if you've ever looked really closely, you can even see a tiny little dot of Lincoln inside that big memorial of all those columns on the back of the page. We are at the Vietnam War Memorial, big black granite wall behind me here. When it was dedicated in 1982, there was concern that the wall was very lifeless. And so they added a couple of other features to it in the following few years. There are 3 statues of soldiers to represent the soldiers who fought in the war. In 1993, they added the Vietnam Women's Memorial to this entire memorial to demonstrate the actual 15,000 women who fought in combat in Vietnam. And there are 8 trees surrounding that section of the memorial. The 8 women to represent the 8 women whose names are actually carved on the Vietnam War Memorial wall. the next to the last monument of our big swing around the mall of the monuments here at the Washington Mall. This is the World War II Memorial, and it was built at the end of the reflecting pool between the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Monument. And this site was dedicated in 1995 by President Clinton when they first broke ground, and it was completed and dedicated to be opened Memorial Day of 2004 by President Bush. We have made full circle here of all the monuments around the mall, and we are now at the Washington Monument. It's the first monument actually that was put up here in the mall. It was started in 1798, 8 days after Washington died, but it took almost 100 years for them to complete it and pick the place and get the funds and all the other stuff involved. There's multiple places where they were going to put it, but because of the size of this giant obelisk and the weight of it, they kept having to move the actual location because the ground was not strong enough. Because in 1854, construction was stopped because of the Civil War, and so if you look at the monument, you'll see two different colors of stone because they stopped building for quite a while. It's built without any mortar. It's all built with tightly carved stones that are stacked upon each other with just gravity holding them together.
I have to say, this by far is my favorite monument. There's something that is truly majestic about looking at history like this that really makes you proud to be an American. That was fun and yet exhausting. We traveled at least
10 miles.
10 miles.
Walking.
was probably a good 5 hours. You've got to put that on your bucket list. This was the second time that I'd seen the Vietnam Memorial, or the wall, and it still evoked a lot of emotion when I saw the names of all the kids that went over there and didn't come back. The Korean War, they have it set up so that you can truly imagine the soldiers trudging through the hillsides and the foliage to get to their objective. The World War II Memorial was just unbelievable.
Huge.
There's a couple that were being worked on, the Jefferson Memorial and the Washington Monument and the FDR, the Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Their basement flooded that has all the pumps for all the waterfalls. The Martin Luther King Memorial was very inspiring. The artist from China,
I think, that finally ended up being the one to carve the statue,
just did
because
an unbelievable job.
It's a special shrimp pink granite that came from China. The Lincoln Memorial. Wow. That takes my breath away every time I climb those steps, and it's not just because I'm out of shape. The walking into that foyer and seeing him sitting in that chair 5 times the size of life. The views are spectacular. Looking out from the Lincoln Memorial, looking out from the hilltop at the Washington Monument, those are all tremendous views. So if you're going to see the museums, if you want to go see the Capitol, if you want to see all the memorials, if you want to see the White House, or the Mint, or the FBI building, or any of the other major federal buildings in the area, because they're all within about 5 blocks.
You could spend a week in this area and still have to hustle to see stuff. But if you're visiting, you can go into any of these. And
a lot of the museums have late nights, like Thursdays, I think, or late on some of them till like 7 or 8 o'clock. And then all the monuments, they have forest rangers there to talk to you about them that tour around till almost 10 o'clock every night.
If you have questions, go ahead and enter them below.
And we'll
in the
put some
comment
links
section.
also about the National Forest Service and the National Park Service. Plan on parking far away and riding the metro in. You don't want to try and park in these.
Oh, that was excellent. Taking the metro in was stellar. I hope you enjoyed the tour. I hope you all learned something. I hope you put it on your bucket list to go see. Anyway, so this is Russ and Val, and where are we? Washington, D.C. Next stop, the Great Northeast.